Good morning. I don't teach it. I do this, perform. I've taught before, but this will be a little bit like a class, but more like a performance. So I'm Robert Buxton, and it's great to be here this morning. So I actually live pretty far away. I live all the way in North Carolina and stayed overnight. I've been playing here all day yesterday and today so far. And so what I want to do first, I'm going to play classical music mostly, some gospel at the very end, old time gospel. And you know, if you were to go back in time to Liszt's times or Beethoven, they liked to improvise things. They liked to just sit down and make something up, you know. Anything, just noodle like that. And there's something we can try. Okay, I have a few questions and we're going to develop an improvisation from. Does anyone have a birthday around this time? Yeah. You do? All right, well, this will be for you then. So I'm going to play Happy Birthday in the style of, well, name a classical composer you like. Anybody? Who? Haydn. Happy Birthday in the style of Haydn. Let's see if I can do that. It sounded like Haydn maybe a little bit. So you want to do one more? Happy Birthday in the style of who? Did you someone here named a composer? Was it? It's okay, but let's go. Beethoven. Well, Beethoven, who was Haydn's student. Mm-hmm. So how would Beethoven do Happy Birthday?
Pretty much the same way.
Well, early Beethoven would, but maybe later Beethoven would be something like this. And it speaks to something kind of personal, so I can't sing. I wish I could. but I do my civic duty and I don't, because you don't want to hear me sing. I have a friend who sings professionally and said, oh, you just have to trust yourself and breathe deeply. And I said, okay, if that's the case, let me try singing for you. And I did, and you know what they said? They said, on second thought, not anybody can sing. So I don't sing. Liszt has arranged this piece for solo piano, and he's transformed it because, you know, a good arranger is like a good translator in writing, literature. I read a quote that I like. It said that an arrangement, sometimes it might even tell you more about the arranger than the original piece. And that's true. I'll explain a little bit why that is. But so Schubert only lived to be 31 years old, which is unbelievable. He had very bad health, died at 31, and he had a very difficult life. You know, he was virtually unknown most of his life, except for a small group of friends. And he was penniless when he died. But it was after his death that people really started to take his music seriously. And Franz Liszt was one of those people. Liszt started to write these arrangements of Schubert's Lieder, Lieder songs, like this one. And what Liszt is doing here, well, I'll tell you first of all, Ave Maria, you've probably heard it sung in Latin, right? The Ave Maria text, Hail Mary prayer. Schubert used another text when he wrote it, a German text, a translation of Sir Walter Scott's The Lady of the Lake poem. It's a short excerpt of that poem translated into German. But anyway, I'm not singing it, so it sort of doesn't matter right now. I mean, it does to think about the subject matter, but it's, you know, it's about Virgin Mary. So what Liszt does here is he adds things. Starting in the middle of the piece, I mean, the beginning doesn't sound all that different from how you've heard it sung. Sound familiar, probably. But then what about in the middle and towards the end? Listen to the right hand. It's doing something a little different. That's not Schubert. Liszt added it. And some people say, oh, Liszt was a show-off. He kind of was. It's not completely wrong. He was like a rock star of the 1830s and 40s. You may have heard the word Listomania. This was what it was. But I think what Liszt is doing is very shrewd and very brilliant, because he knows that without a singer and without the words, this music could get repetitive. So he has to add something. And in adding that fluff, you can call it, extra notes and things, he makes it work as a piano piece, solo piano piece. So this is Schubert Liszt, Ave Maria. musical background, I played since I was little, but I began to be very serious about it when I was an early teenager, 13, 14. Started with hearing old recordings of pianists like Joseph Hoffman, Paderewski, Horowitz, that really got me. And so I went to music school in high school at a place called the Manhattan School of Music, so I lived in New Jersey at the time, and studied at Manhattan for 8 years, high school and college. And then I went to work with a very good Russian teacher, Vladimir Viardo, in Texas. And also the Russian thing, my mother's Russian. I'm going to tell you more about that as we go along. I'm going to play some Russian music. And that's pretty much it. I've taught before, and as much as I like teaching, I've kind of found my calling performing and speaking. This is a little bit like teaching too, I guess, but that's pretty much it. I can tell you more details later. But
Is your mother musical?
she's not. No, she's not a musician, funny enough, but her brother, my uncle, was a novelist, and he inspired me a lot too, and my brother's a painter, visual art, so there's a lot of inspiration from them. My dad too is very creative. My dad's an immigrant also from Southern Virginia, I would say. My mother's from Russia, he's from Virginia. And he plays a lot of the old gospel, country gospel on the guitar. So I play that music too. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'm obsessed with piano, as I will. But I especially like playing pieces that are not originally written for the piano, like that. And the next one I'm going to do, this is also called Ave Maria, but it's the Bach Gounod Ave Maria. And it may be familiar, but maybe not quite as familiar as the last one. But here's a story about that. My wife is also a pianist, and she was asked, she plays organ too, and she plays for a large church near where we live. And there was a wedding there. They said, could you please play Ave Maria for the wedding? And so she said, which one? Because there are several Ave Marias, And they said to her, look, don't get smart with us. There's only one Ave Maria. So she played the Schubert and everyone was happy, but there's more. This is another Ave Maria. This is Bach Gounod. The story with it is that Charles Gounod was spending time with his father-in-law in the 1850s. They were looking at Bach together, which is so nice. If everybody looked at Bach's music with their in-laws, the world would be a better place, So they were playing and studying this C major prelude by Bach. It's the first prelude from the Bell-tempered clavier. Very familiar, probably. And speaking of improvisation, I was noodling a little bit, doing Haydn impersonations and such, Beethoven. Gounod improvised a melody on top of that. Spontaneous. And this is the melody. Maybe you've heard it before. Etc. And the father-in-law wrote it down frantically. Gounod edited it, published it as a violin piece, and then later added the Latin text, Hail Mary, Ave Maria, and later published it as a vocal work. So you can hear it as a violin piece or as a vocal piece, and sometimes even both, and it's really lovely that way. Now, I don't play the violin or sing, so this is a piano solo version by Georges Bizet, the man who wrote Carmen. Great composer too. So that's a lot of names. It's getting confusing for me. I mean, it's a four-person piece, what I'm going to play. A four-person creation. It's Bach, it's Gounod, it's his father-in-law, and it's Bizet. So here is that Ave Maria. Oops. so that's the Bach Gounod Ave Maria. It's also Ave Maria. Next I'm going to play you a piece by Robert Schumann, also supposed to be sung. This is called Widmung, or Dedication. The text is by poet Friedrich Buchert, German poet, but I'm not singing, I'm sorry, I can't. So this is Liszt's arrangement for piano. It's a love song. You know, it's like Smoke Gets in Your Eyes or something, but from 1840. Schumann wrote this as a wedding gift for his wife Clara, who herself, she was a great musician herself, you know. And this piece, how to explain it? You know, their marriage was very hard to get to. Like, Clara's father was Robert Schumann's piano teacher, and he did not approve of them getting married. So one of the reasons was Schumann damaged his hand. He couldn't play after a while. He had an injury, you know. Another thing is that I think a lot of people viewed Schumann, even today, as someone who was sort of all over the place, crazy. He wasn't crazy, actually. He had a terrible condition, bipolar disorder. And you hear it in his music in some way. You know, his music is either manic or it's so sad, and you know, he felt the extremes of life, you know. Or how does that mean? I could do maybe a little thing on that. How would Beethoven do it, or Mozart, right? I like to have fun with these things. So, back to the Schumann. This piece is kind of manic, and it sounds like the feeling of being in love, I think. You know, when you're in love and you're talking to the person that you're in love with, you might have more adrenaline going, you might have butterflies in your stomach. It's all here in this piece, you know. It's never in a middle ground, some extreme of feeling. So here's the Widmung, or Dedication, by Robert Schumann, arranged for piano solo by Franz Liszt. I looked it up, it's not true, but the Google told me that South Carolina is not warmer than North Carolina where I live, but it is. It's a little warmer, so, and that's why the peaches are better, so. I really wish I could just stay here in South Carolina and eat all the peaches, because driving here, one peach after another, peach stand, and they look really good. So even that peach statue on 85. So I was really shocked to see that. So I'm going to play you now another list arrangement. This is of Schubert. We're going back in time a little bit to 1815, 16. This is the Erlkönig by Schubert, and it's a terrifying piece for a few reasons. One is it's terrifying for me to play because it's brand new for me. So that's one reason. It's also notoriously difficult. You have to use your wrist to play these repeated notes for the whole 4.5 minutes of it. And it gets tiring. I think I should have had more coffee, you know? Coffee helps with this piece. But it's also terrifying because the subject matter is kind of like a horror movie. The text, if I were to sing, I don't sing, but the text is by Goethe, and great German writer, of course. And the text, there are 4 characters in this song. A good singer will actually change their voice a little bit to convey the different characters. So there's a narrator who explains to us what's going on. There's a young boy who's very ill. There's his father, is one of the characters. And then the 4th character is the Erlkönig, who's this supernatural, maybe ghost or something, some sort of strange character who lives in the forest. And when the piece goes like it takes place in the middle of a thunderstorm. We had one last night, did you hear it? So it's a rainy, thunderstorm, middle of the night, and the young boy is very sick. The father they're in a horse carriage, and they're racing through the forest in the middle of the night to get to a doctor. And you hear all of that from the first notes. You can hear the horse hooves, the wind, and the trees, going around violently. So this is the beginning of it, and you'll already get that picture, I think. From the get-go, it's this thing. It's terrifying. It's very intense. It gets kind of loud, too. So what happens is that the song is a dialogue, mainly between the boy and his father. And the boy keeps telling his father, he says in German, mein Vater, says, I hear this ghost, this Erlkönig, telling me to come to him. And the Erlkönig represents death. And the father keeps saying in German, mein Sohn, my son, you're imagining things. And you're going to hear all of that. And at the very end of the piece, that the wild, energy of the music subsides, and the narrator tells us, again, I'm not singing, but in the song, the narrator tells us that the boy is dying. So it's a very, very tragic, dark piece. And I like to joke around and keep things light, but this is the side of life that is not so light. And Schubert really lived this piece, this story, because he struggled with a terrible illness and died at 31. And so, of course, he could relate to a poem about some sort of ghost in the forest beckoning him to come and die, pretty much. So this is what the music is. It's terrifying to play, and it's kind of new for me. But this is one of the arrangements of Schubert that Liszt played almost at every recital, I think he did. So this was one of his staples that he played in the 1840s and such. So here's Schubert Liszt Erlkönig. told you, that's a heavy, heavy piece. The story behind it is just, oof. So, now I'm going to play you something that's not quite as heavy. This is a piece by a Mexican composer, Manuel Ponce. And this is a piece called Intermezzo Number 1 from 1908. And the story with Ponce is the story of a lot of Latin American composers, a lot of US American composers too. So he went to study in Europe, tried to become a European type composer. But then when he came back to Mexico, he realized he didn't want to do that. He wanted to be more true to his roots, to his musical heritage, Mexican folk music. So you hear in this piece, it just has some of the flavor of Mexican folk music. In the States, Aaron Copland, he was born in Queens, but he went to study in Paris with Nadia Boulanger. You don't get more French than that. It's really just, but he came back to America during the Great Depression. And he realized that this business of trying to be a European type composer wasn't going to work. So he started writing patriotic things, American subjects like Billy the Kid and Rodeo and Appalachian Spring. That's similar to what Ponce went through, and many others. This was a sort of a character dilemma. Who should I be? Should I be European? Should I be not? So here is the Intermezzo Number 1 by Manuel Ponce, 1908. And I love his music. He should be played more, I believe, strongly. So here it is. What I should do next. I'm going to play you part of Rachmaninoff's Paganini Rhapsody, probably the most famous part, the 18th variation. And it shows Rachmaninoff's nostalgia for Russia. I think I mentioned earlier, my mother's from Russia. And she loves living here, of course, but she misses many things about it and has this deep nostalgia. She'll cook Russian soup in the middle of summer, force me to come eat it. Which it's great, but it's just not the food you want to eat when it's 100 degrees out and 100% humidity. But that's Russian nostalgia, and that's this music too. I mean, Rachmaninoff had his house in Beverly Hills designed as an exact replica of his house in Russia. He was just so attached to Russian culture. And this is a famous part. It's a short excerpt of the piece. And he wrote this after he had left Russia, The first half of his life was mainly in 19th century Russia. Then, when the communist revolution happened in 1917, he and his family got out, never went back even to visit. They couldn't. And he couldn't write music after that move. He couldn't write for like 15 years. He didn't write any new music. But then in the 1930s, he started composing again, and that's when he wrote this. And you can just feel it, the rush of homesickness is just all there. The piece is based off of the Paganini 24th Caprice, which is very famous. But in the 18th variation, he turns that melody literally upside down. If you take the sheet music for that and flip it upside down, you get this new melody. That's Paganini upside down. And he turned it into this really heart-wrenching piece. Again, this is just one fragment of one variation, the 18th variation, from a large piece for piano and orchestra. And I'm working on my own arrangement. This is also my own arrangement for solo piano, because I can't bring an orchestra with me everywhere. It's kind of impractical. So here is the piece, the 18th variation of Rachmaninoff's Paganini Rhapsody. My hands are all sweaty. I think I'm going to have to do that again. And as promised, I'm going to close with gospel, but I want to play two different versions of another Russian piece. This is the Rimsky-Korsakov Flight of the Bumblebee. If you go outside, you might experience that in real life. Maybe better not to. I was inspired to learn this because I was out in my yard and some bumblebees started flying around in my face. And I thought about this piece. So this is from an opera by Rimsky-Korsakov. In 1900 he wrote it. And it's, in Act 2, there's this prince who turns into a bumblebee so that he can fly into the royal palace to see the Tsar, who happens to be his father. If that doesn't make any sense, that's right, it doesn't. It's a Russian fairy tale. My mother's Russian, and I grew up on them. They don't make any sense, and that's all there is to it. But what this piece does is it just sounds like a bumblebee. I mean, you'll feel it maybe. You'll start itching a little bit. I do when I play it. So I want to do two versions, two arrangements. You ever hear two different people tell the same story, and one person might stick to the facts, another person doesn't? They add things that maybe didn't even happen. That's what I'm going to do here. The first arrangement is by Rachmaninoff, who you just heard. And he's pretty accurate to the Rimsky-Korsakov, to the original. He doesn't change it a whole lot. So here it is, and you're going to hear the bumblebee. It just really sounds like a bee. I don't know. So here it is. Thank you. The next, and this will be the last classical piece I play today. This is another arrangement of Flight of the Bumblebee by György Cifra, spelled C-Z-I-F-F-R-A. He was a Hungarian gypsy pianist, and in the 1950s, he tried to escape communist Hungary. He was captured by the Soviets and imprisoned, sentenced to hard labor for years. And he had to lift these heavy stones all day, and it damaged the muscles and ligaments in his arms. Now, I mentioned Schumann earlier damaged his hands, couldn't really play after that. Well, Cifra, this experience didn't affect his playing at all. Actually, if you listen to his recordings, you'll hear that he was superhuman, just like Art Tatum, the jazz pianist. You can't, I've tried to sound like those recordings of both of them. No way. You can't. They're on another planet, those guys. So Cifra, his arrangement of Flight of the Bumblebee, first of all, it's absolutely crazy. And I mentioned he changes it. Some people tell a story like Rachmaninoff, they stick to the facts. Some people embellish. This is embellished. It doesn't even sound like a bumblebee. It sounds like swarms of yellow jackets. It's like... The whole piece is like that. So really, it's good luck to all of us. Me too. I mean, it's wild stuff. So I'm going to play for you some gospel to close. I played gospel, you know, my mother, I told you, she's from Russia, and my dad's also an immigrant from the southern part of Virginia. And so he raised me on gospel music. That's what he calls real music. He said, all that classical stuff, play some real music. So here's some real music on the Jericho Road, which is an old gospel song. They don't sing it too much in churches now, but here it is. And it's just wonderful, this piece. So. Gospel, I could do, since we're on the subject. So this is In My Heart There Rings a Melody. I love this gospel song, but I can't decide whether I want to do it fast or slow. So when you can't decide, do both. Kind of like I did with the Bumblebee. I just picked those two arrangements. On Thanksgiving, there's always the debate. And I don't like debates like this. Do you like pumpkin pie or sweet potato pie? You know, I'm always going to ask for both. So you don't hear that too often, but I'm just going to have it all. So that's That's what I try to do here, and at the end I go completely New Orleans style here. But this is, yeah, in my heart there rings a melody. This is another one of those older gospel songs they don't sing too much anymore in churches, but I think they should, so. Well, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you later. Hopefully, not living too close to you in North Carolina, but hopefully come back visit soon. So, thank you very much, and stay cool out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.